Okay, so now let's come to the very important and most wanted video of the time. What is this? Diagnosis of the genetic disorders. Okay, so diagnosis of the genetic disorder is a very important topic which is asked in the exam so many times, and the problem is that we don't know this. Okay, we have not studied about it, so we don't know this. Very important. Everybody should know the diagnosis of genetic disorders, and this is a very high yield topic for your central exams, so everybody should be very clear about it. Okay, so whenever I'm talking about diagnosis of genetic disorders, first keep some things in your mind very clear. So diagnosis of genetic disorder is very easy if you understand like this. Okay, so you just have to ask yourself two questions. So first, do you know the disease causing mutation? Okay, that's the first question that we ask. So whenever disease causing mutation is known, okay, like for example, if you look at the child and you say that okay, this patient has simian crease and it has a sandal gap, so this is a Down syndrome. So once you're very clear that this is a Down syndrome clinically, so you have only one differential. Let's say you say maybe this could be a Patau syndrome, but you know the disease causing mutation, that this is a probably Down syndrome. Okay, you look at the patient of hemophilia presenting with joint bleeds and you say no, and a positive family history, you say this is hemophilia. You're very clear with it. Okay, so whenever you know the disease causing mutation, the diagnosis of choice becomes sequencing. Okay, so diagnosis of choice becomes sequencing. You have to do sequencing. This sequencing can be done by various methods. Usually used method is PCR, okay, polymerase chain reaction. So you just do sequencing, okay, that is helpful. But the technique matters also. So suppose if you are having basically chromosomal disorder, like you're seeing Down syndrome, you know it is trisomy 21. So you know this is because of this is because of a chromosomal defect. So whenever you have chromosomal defects in mind, you prefer a technique called as karyotyping. Karyo means chromosome, typing means you type the chromosomes. Okay, but karyotyping has its own flaws. So better than karyotyping, we came up with a new technique called FISH. Okay, so a FISH also has various modifications. It can be 2 color, it can be 5 color. So 5 color FISH was called as SKY, whereas there was another technique called as chromosomal painting, which we'll see later. This is also modification of FISH. So all these techniques are basically used whenever you know the disease causing mutations. Now, when you do not know the disease causing mutation, the second spectrum is when you do not know the disease causing mutation. What do you mean by that? That you don't know. See, multifactorial disorders like diabetes, cleft palate, cleft lip, hypertension, pyloric stenosis, okay, so schizophrenia, you don't know the exact genes which cause it. Okay, so in these multifactorial disorders, you are very perplexed that what is a disease, what is a mutation which has caused this. So in such condition, when you have no idea of the disease causing mutation, you are left with some tools. These genetic tools are comparative genome hybridization. Number 1, comparative genome hybridization. Number 2, we are dealing with, what are we dealing with? We are dealing with genome wide association studies. And third is, which I have already taught you, isn't it? So this I have already taught you in multifactorial disorders. This is called linkage analysis. I hope you remember and you're very clear with linkage disequilibrium, and you remember that my example also. Yes, so linkage analysis is when you follow those linkage tools. Okay, so I hope you remember polymorphism, single nucleotide polymorphism, and their close inheritance with certain genes. Okay, so linkage analysis is used for that techniques. So whenever you don't have an idea of disease causing mutation, you are left with comparative genome hybridization, genome wide association studies, and linkage analysis. So this is a basic platform to understand how do we approach a genetic disorders. Okay, so once we are very clear with how we approach the genetic disorders, let's go to them one by one. Okay, so first I'm going to talk about the most basic technique which we do whenever we are suspecting a chromosomal mutation. Okay, chromosomal mutation, then we do what is called as a technique called as karyotyping. See, name itself is saying karyo means chromosome, typing means you type it. Okay, so this is called karyotyping, that is chromosomal typing. So remember everybody, when I am talking about karyotyping, that is chromosomal typing, you have to be pretty clear that here we are going to arrange the chromosomes. So what is the rule of arranging the chromosome? The first rule of arranging the chromosome is that you arrange the chromosome in the decreasing order of length. Okay, so decreasing order of length. That's the first rule that you do. Okay, so longest first and then you keep on decreasing. So you arrange them in decreasing order of length. That's number 1. Okay, so the largest chromosome is usually chromosome number 1, and then comes the smallest like that, followed by sex chromosomes, which could be XX or XY. So you all know that we all have 22 pair of autosomes and one pair of sex chromosome. So we have one pair of sex chromosome and 22 pairs of autosomes. Okay, so that's the simple rule which we have to see, 22 plus one pair of sex chromosomes. So chromosomes are arranged in decreasing order of length, followed by sex chromosomes. That's first rule. So once you are arranging it in decreasing order of length, okay, now you should also know that every chromosome has a short arm and a long arm. So P stands for petite. Petite means small. Okay, so P was petite, short arm. Okay, so short arm is called as P arm, and the next alphabet after P was Q. So that was given for long arm. Okay, so it doesn't have any full form. So short arm is P, petite, and the long arm is called Q. Okay, so that is how we see the chromosome, short arm and long arm. Okay, so chromosomes are arranged in decreasing order of length, and then you have to have a you all should see that whether it is having proper short arms, long arms, and it should be arranged in decreasing order of length followed by the sex chromosome. Now, the major drawback of karyotyping is that it has to be done in metaphase. So you can't just arrange it like that. You have to stop them in metaphase. That is, you have to do a metaphase arrest. And this metaphase arrest is usually done by colchicine. So metaphase arrest is usually done by colchicine. So this causes metaphase arrest. That's very, very important. After doing, okay, now once you have done metaphase arrest, you will be able to arrange it in the decreasing order of length. But it is very, very important to fix it. Okay, it is very, very important to fix it. So what is the fixative of choice for karyotyping? The fixative of choice is called Carnoy's fixative. What is the fixative of choice? Carnoy's fixative. And if I am talking about Carnoy's fixative, everybody know that it is 3:1 ratio of ethanol and glacial acetic acid. So we have already discussed about this about so many times. So 3:1 ratio of ethanol and glacial acetic acid. So can you tell me, where have you read Sacco-Vanno fixative? Sputum cytology, isn't it? So fluids, whenever you have to fix fluids, you use Sacco-Vanno fixative. Okay, Carnoy's is for your karyotyping. Okay, so glacial acetic acid is there in this. So this is Carnoy's fixative. So once you have fixed it, now you have to stain it. But before staining, you know, there are a lot of unwanted proteins which also come, which will give you a lot of background staining. So therefore, you always have to do a trypsin digestion. Okay, so trypsin eats up the unwanted proteins and don't give you background staining. So you have to do trypsin digestion. Only after this, once you've done all these steps, now you can proceed to staining. Okay, now you proceed to staining. So when you proceed to staining, here you basically stain predominantly with Giemsa dye. You stain it with Giemsa dye. Okay, so when you do stain it with Giemsa, this banding is called as G banding. Okay, because you stain it with Giemsa, this is called as G banding. Okay, Giemsa is called G banding. So everybody knows that in Giemsa, whenever you see the chromosome, you can see alternative dark and light areas. So these alternative dark and light areas correspond to heterochromatin and euchromatin. So it corresponds to heterochromatin and euchromatin. So dark areas are, we have already talked about this in chapter 1 of the pathology. When we started pathology in the nucleus, I started with this, okay. So heterochromatin are the dark color bands, euchromatin are the light color bands. So dark color bands are heterochromatin, light color bands are the euchromatin. And I told you the clue also to remember, hetero has hetero. So I told you dark bands usually are rich in AT regions, whereas light bands are usually rich in GC regions. So dark bands are usually rich in AT and light bands are usually rich in GC. And that's how I told you to remember it. So this is your hetero and euchromatin. So hetero is AT regions and euchromatin is GC regions. So you get alternative dark and light areas. So that is how you see the chromosome and genes are. Dark and light areas should be seen as alternative areas. So this kind of banding was called as Giemsa banding, which is the most common type of banding or staining we do. Just opposite to G banding, we have R banding. What is R banding? Reverse banding. Okay, so this is your reverse banding. So whenever I am talking about reverse banding, here also you get light and dark areas, okay, but it is reverse of the G banding, that is, here the dark areas correspond to euchromatin, okay, dark areas correspond to euchromatin and light areas corresponds to heterochromatin. So it's opposite, okay, this is opposite. So normally dark is always hetero, isn't it? That's what you have studied in cell chapter, the first chapter of pathology, isn't it? So when I say euchromatin means it is GC rich and hetero means it is AT rich. So in reverse banding, if they ask you, so in reverse banding, so somebody asks you what is the dark color band? So dark color band in reverse banding is GC region. Okay, so that you have to remember, it's opposite of Giemsa. Okay. Now third, once I talked about heterochromatin, so everybody knows this. So when I told about heterochromatin, do you remember when we discussed about heterochromatin? At that time I told you that we have two types of heterochromatin. I told you this in chapter 1, cell of the pathology. So we have two types of heterochromatin, constitutive heterochromatin and facultative heterochromatin. So constitutive means which cannot be changed, facultative means which can change into euchromatin when need arises, isn't it? We talked about this in the cell changes. So constitutive heterochromatin is usually present in the centromeres. Okay, so constitutive heterochromatin is usually present in the centromere. So therefore this is also called as C banding. What is this called as? This is also called as C banding. So this is also known as C banding, that is constitutive banding. Okay, it stains constitutive bands or centromeric banding. So this is your C banding. Now coming to the fourth type of banding, here we bind telomers. So that is what is called as T banding. So here we are binding the telomers. Here we are binding the telomers. So this is called as T banding. So how many types of banding do you have studied till now? So 4 major types we have studied till now, that is Giemsa dye, okay, G banding, opposite of it reverse banding, T banding, telomer banding, constitutive banding is centromeric banding, okay. So these are common type of banding, and out of these most common banding that we use is Giemsa banding. Now instead of Giemsa, now we can also stain it with some other dye, okay. So this dye is called quinacridone, okay. So this is a fluorescent dye, this is a fluorescent dye, okay, called quinacridone, and this is called as Q banding. What is this called as? Q banding. So Q banding is your quinacridone, okay, it's quinacridone or Q banding. And whenever I am talking about Q banding or quinacridone banding, remember quinacridone is a fluorescent dye which can bind to both GC and AT regions. But who is the dark region of the chromosome? Heterochromatin, isn't it? So this takes up fluorescent most intensely. So AT region give fluorescence more intensely. So both will bind GC and AT, but who will give fluorescence more intensely? AT regions, that is heterochromatin regions. Okay, AT regions will fluorescence more brightly. So this binding is called as Q banding. So can I say all practical purposes how many types of banding you've studied? 5 types: G banding, R banding, T banding, C banding and Q banding. Apart from that, we also have one more stain which we can use. Okay. So here we can use silver nitrate. Okay. So we can use silver nitrate stain. Okay. So here we are using silver nitrate stain. So silver nitrate stain basically can highlight NOR regions, that is nucleolar organizing regions. Okay, so this can highlight nucleolar organizing regions. So these are the areas where rRNAs are maximally present. Okay, so this is the area, so this is nucleoli. I hope you understand, RNA rich areas. So these are the areas where nucleolar organizing regions can be identified, and this can be identified by a stain called silver nitrite. So NOR can be highlighted. This can be a question that can be asked. NOR can be highlighted by which stain? Silver nitrate. So now for all practical purposes, so we have, when we talk about bandings, we have 5 bandings: G banding, we have R banding, we have C banding, we have T banding and we have Q banding. But silver nitrate can also be used to highlight which regions of the chromosomes? NOR regions, that is RNA rich areas, rRNA rich areas. So these can be highlighted by silver nitrate. Okay. So this is also called as AgNOR staining. Okay. Anyhow, just remember this, silver nitrate for NOR. Okay. So is everybody clear with us? Yes. So that is your basic about karyotyping. Okay. So once we are clear, let's see it and learn about more facts about it. Okay. So let's see the karyotyping now. Now can you see this? What are you doing here? So here you are arranging the chromosomes in the decreasing order of length. Okay, so chromosomes are arranged in decreasing order of length. Okay, so can you see here that whenever I am talking about the largest chromosome is chromosome number 1, and then we are arranging the chromosomes in decreasing order of length followed by the sex chromosome, that is X and Y. Okay, now once you are clear with this, you have to understand that we can also see the light and dark areas. So can everybody appreciate the light and dark areas? So every chromosome has light and dark areas. So dark areas correspond to the heterochromatin and the light areas correspond to the euchromatin. Okay, so this is how we arrange it, and we fix it in Carnoy's fixative, and then we stain it with the different stains. We can be Giemsa, it can be quinacrine. Okay, which we can stain, and remember it can be done only in the metaphase. That's a major drawback here. Okay, now once we are clear with this, so this I have taught you already that what are the types of banding we have discussed about it. Now once we are clear, now let's see this. So alternative light and dark areas can be seen with G banding, which you have already seen. Okay. Can you see here, only the centromeres are being highlighted here. So this is actually nothing but your C banding. Okay, so constitutive banding where only the centromeres are highlighted. Okay, now let's go to the next one. So Q banding, can you see this is a fluorescent banding, and some areas are brightly green, they are coming brightly green. So already I told you that quinacrine can bind with both AT and GC region, but who are the fluorescencing region? Usually AT regions. So they fluorescence brightly. So this is what is called Q banding. Okay, right. Now let's come to this. This is T banding is the last, and can you see this? These are the nucleolar organizing regions which you can see when you put silver nitrate stain. Okay, so AgNOR staining. This is also known as AgNOR staining. So silver staining basically. Okay, so Ag is for silver, NOR is nucleotide organizing regions. So you can see these nucleotide organizing regions when you stain it with silver nitrite. Okay. So now let's go to the errors. So these are the common errors which you see in karyotyping. Can you see this? So again, chromosomes are showing light and dark areas. Perfect. There is no problem in that. 22 autosomes, 1 sex chromosome. But here we have XXY. So what is this? Klinefelter syndrome. So this is a Klinefelter syndrome. Let's go to the next one. Okay, can you see this? Again, the chromosomes are arranged in decreasing order of length. But here you can see trisomy of chromosome number 21. So this is your Down syndrome. Okay. So let's look at the next one. So most common cause of Down syndrome we have already talked about, that is meiotic non-disjunction of chromosome number 21. Okay, meiotic non-disjunction of chromosome number 21. Apart from that, I told you 4% of Down syndromes can occur because of translocation, Robertsonian translocation 2122 or 2114, and one person can occur because of mosaicism. And I told you that whenever mosaicism and translocation are involved, maternal age is of no significance. Okay, now look at this. What is this? So can you see here? It's trisomy of chromosome number 13, which I've already told you. This is nothing but Patau syndrome. So Patau syndrome usually has a cleft lip and cleft palate and malformed ears. So this patient has cleft lip and cleft palate and some malformation of the ears, that is typically seen in Patau syndrome. Okay, you know, when you see the patient clinically, you know that this is Patau, you have to confirm it, so you do karyotyping in it. Okay, so this you already know, Klinefelter we have already talked about. Look at this here. If I am saying this is a female and this she is showing you this, so there is no X, one X is missing, so this is XO, this is Turner's. Remember, Turner's have normal IQ, okay, apart from all the genetic disorders which we have studied, they usually have normal IQ and they usually present with cystic hygroma, okay, lymphangiomas of the neck. That's a clinical presentation. So any child presenting with lymphangioma at birth, suspect Turner syndrome. Okay, any child presenting with duodenal atresia at birth, think of Down syndrome. Okay, remember these some clues by which you can pick up. Any child presenting with malformed ear and cleft palate, think of Patau syndrome. So these are some common things you have to remember. Okay, now look at this. This is a very important syndrome which we have already discussed. This is called as Cry-Do-Chat syndrome. So you know, Cry-Do-Chat is, how do you, it's very tough to pick it up if you don't know the karyotyping well. So here we have a partial deletion of short arm of chromosome 5. Okay, so I'll show you that. Okay, so in this picture it might not be very clear. This partial deletion of chromosome number 5. I'll show you how it looks. So this child cries like a cat and he is mentally retarded and he has a small head. So small head, he cries like a cat, and that is why it is called Cry-Do-Chat syndrome. And there is a partial deletion of small arm of 5. So if I am arranging the chromosomes, okay, so chromosomes can be arranged in different, sets. Okay, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So that's easier to manipulate and check them according to that. Okay, so look at the chromosome. So when you look in B, it is 4 and 5 chromosome. Here you can see that in 5th, okay, short arm is getting partially deleted. Normally you should have both short and long arm together. Okay, so you should have like this, short and long, like this. But here there is a partial deletion of the short arm of chromosome 5. So whenever there is partial deletion of short arm of chromosome number 5, this is called as Cry-Do-Chat syndrome. What is this called as? Cry-Do-Chat syndrome. That's Cry-Do-Chat syndrome, which everybody has to be very, very clear with. Okay, so that is your Cry-Do-Chat syndrome, which everybody should be clear about. Okay, so these are some karyotypic abnormalities. Not only you have to see the number abnormality, but also the shape abnormalities. Okay, so whether there is a partial deletion of one arm or not, like Cry-Do-Chat, short partial deletion of 5. So that is very, very important to be seen on karyotyping, and these are the type of karyotyping. Now the next question is, which sample will you take for karyotyping? Okay, see, karyotyping can be, the major drawback of karyotyping is that it can be done only on the dividing cells. It can be done only on the dividing cells. So resting cells can't do it. Okay, so you can't do it on resting cells. You have to have dividing cells. So you can take any tissues like fibroblasts. Okay, you can see blood cells. In blood cells also, blood cells can be made to multiply. Lymphocytes can be made to multiply, but monocytes never multiply. So we can never use monocytes for karyotyping. So which cells you can never use for karyotyping? Monocytes. You cannot use monocytes for karyotyping. So I think there was a question which came in the exam recently. Karyotyping is done with all except. So remember, it can be done with everything. It can be done with amnion, it can be done with fibroblast, it can be done in blood cells, it can be done with lymphocytes because they can be made to divide. But cells which never divide are blood monocytes. Okay, so they don't divide. So therefore, we never do karyotyping on the monocytes. Okay, now resolution of karyotyping, if somebody is saying, this is 2 to 5 million base pair. Okay, so what is the resolution of karyotyping? 2 to 5 million base pair. That's the resolution of karyotyping. That's the depth. That's not how much we can see. 2 to 5 million base pairs we can see by karyotyping. So if somebody asks you what are the samples you can use for karyotyping, okay, so please remember, if I am asking about samples used for karyotyping, you can use any dividing cells. So antenatal, you can do chorionic villi sampling, amniocentesis, fetal blood cells, even circulating fetal DNA you can take. Okay, Whereas postnatal, you can take lymphocytes, bone marrow, fibroblast, any solid tissue which can divide, anything you can use, but not monocytes. So you cannot use monocytes. That's what you have to remember. Okay, monocytes cannot be used for karyotyping. Okay, that's another question that they ask you in karyotyping. Everybody clear with this? Yes. So once we are clear with karyotyping, the next thing that they ask is, what about these bands? You have already seen that there are dark and light bands which come in the chromosome. So there is a special technique. So if you have to see the abnormality of the bands, or you have to represent the chromosome, you know, every gene is present on its own locus point. So how to give the address on the chromosome? So for that, they came for a new technique called as idiogram. Okay, so they came for a technique called as idiogram. What is idiogram? Idiogram is actually the representation of the bands in the chromosome. Okay, so when you want to see the bands in the chromosome, you use idiogram. So always remember, let me teach you how we make an ideogram. Okay, so let's look at how we make an ideogram. So let me give you an example of it. Okay, so let us see, this is a chromosome. Suppose this is a chromosome. So every chromosome, this is a centromere. So it has a short arm, and it has a long arm. So short arm is called P, long arm is called Q. Let us say I am talking about chromosome number 15. I am talking about chromosome number 15. So chromosome number 15 has a short arm or a long arm. Okay, so the first thing that you write in any chromosome is 15Q. Okay, that's what you write. So let's say first thing that you write in a chromosome is its position, whether it is a short arm or whether it is a long arm, like this. Okay, now starting from the centromere, you start dividing the chromosome into regions. Okay, so first thing that you do is you divide the chromosome into regions starting from the centromere. So 11, 12, 13, okay, so like that, 11, 12, 13, like that. So every chromosome now we divided into regions. So 11, 12, 13, okay, like that, 11, 12, 13, that's the region. So first thing that comes here is region. So suppose I am saying 15P11, that is 15 short arm and region number 11. 15Q13, that is 15 long arm, region number 13. Okay, now every region is divided into bands. Okay, every region has some bands. So let us say, I will give you an example. Let us, I am going to focus on chromosome number 21. Okay, so chromosome number 21 has 3 bands. Okay, so it has 3 bands which you can see. Okay, so chromosome number 21 has 3 bands. Okay, so I can divide it into 3 bands now, 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so I will write band. After region we will write band. Okay, so you will put a decimal here and you will write band. Okay, which band? Band number 1, band number 2, band number 3. So every chromosome is further divided into bands. So you will give band. Okay, so let me give you one more example. Look at this chromosome. Okay, so this is a long arm they have written. So let's say it's a 13Q long arm. Now I am saying write down the region in the 13Q, region number 14. Define the region number 14. So this is your region number 14. So you have written region number 14 has how many bands? 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. So 14.3. Okay, 14.3. Can you see this? So this is the, what is this 14? 14 is the region. What is 3? 3 is the band. If you want to go more refined, even we can make sub bands. We can even make sub bands. So like if somebody has given you this, that means they have also written sub band. This is sub band. So remember, how do you write a ideogram then? So first you will write the chromosome, then you will write its arm, short or long, then you will write the region, then you will write the band, and then you will write the sub band. Okay, so chromosome, arm, region, band and sub band. So this is CARBS, carbs. So ideogram can be remembered as carbs. Okay, so remember it as carbs. You write the chromosome, you write the arm, you write the region, you write the band, and you write the subband. Okay, so that is how we write the ideogram. That's how we denote the ideogram. Is everybody clear? That's how we denote the ideogram. So if I am talking about, let's say, okay, I'm going to give you this. Okay, identify this. Okay. So I've given you two examples. Now you write. Can you identify this? So 13p11. Okay. What is this? Chromosome number 13. Short arm is P. 11 is the region. They have not written the bands. So chromosome number 13. Short arm is P. The region is 15 and the band number is 5. You understand that? Okay. So let me give you one more example. Okay. Let me give you one more example. Okay. Okay, tell me 11p13. What is this? Chromosome number 11, short arm is P, region number 13. What is present on that? WT1. So this is the location for WT1. So very particular. If somebody asks you where is WT1 present, you will say 11p13. That is on 11 chromosome, short arm, in the region number 13 we have WT1. So this is what is the locus of WT1 region. Whereas what is this? On chromosome number 11, short arm, region number 15, in the fifth band, we have WT2. You understand? So WT2 is present in the fifth, okay, in the fifth band of chromosome of the region 15 of 11p. So that is WT2. Do you understand the locus? That's the importance of the locus now. So that is how we define the ideogram. So ideogram gives you the position of each and every gene of your body. So every gene of your body you can remember if you remember the ideogram well. Okay, so this is your ideogram. Remember the code carbs. Okay, that is chromosome, okay, arm, region, bands and subbands. Okay, that's how we make a ideogram, and that is how we do a karyotyping. So is everybody clear with the karyotyping? And you should be very clear with it. Okay, so that's your karyotyping. Perfect. Okay, that's the first technique today, karyotyping. Okay.